Um, okay, perfect. So you hit a lot of things that I feel like are really important. So I am on my sophomore book thing, and it is really interesting because I guess I do feel like I should be writing another like straight on romance, and I'm not. So I feel like I might want to like I might end up taking your advice. We'll see what happens with the second book. In my estimation, it still feels very much like a love story, but I know it's not straight on romance, you know? So I think that's such interesting input. And then also what I love is kind of like the research involved in writing fiction. I think so much we think about research when it comes to like nonfiction, but really so many fiction writers are doing this kind of research. So I love that you actually like went to Houston. Were there other places that because the book spans so many cities,
It does, yeah.
because the siblings are spread out all across. Were there other places that you traveled as well?
I really am so fascinated by the vastness of America and like the diasporic nature of it's not one monolithic experience. And so I
Mhm.
really was fascinated by that. I have to say the money ran out, so I only stuck to Houston and Texas for this. But my the story at Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, I actually have a deep connection to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That story of Huey landing and Duck landing in Lancaster, Pennsylvania is true. My father landed in the Amish town when he immigrated here, and that was his first introduction to America, which is like the Amish countryside. So it was like a huge shock to him.
Yeah.
And he then moved to Philadelphia and he loves Philly. Like I think his love of Philly was passed on to me, and I've been to Philly many times before. The Christian family that adopted or sponsored my father still lives in Lancaster, so I go back from time to time. But that part is true about his love of Philadelphia, and I really want to incorporate that uh, kind of like the climbing Chinatown area. It is like most of these areas that I incorporate, like the enclaves are dying, and I always wondered what would happen with the next generation. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, I try to incorporate those personal stories into it. And I've always been, yeah, I love Philly. I love Philly. I'm fascinated by Lancaster. Uh, yeah,
I love that. I mean, that thought around like, of course, like being from Philly and like our kind of like Chinatown, but I'm sure like so many other cultures being really mixed up in kind of like the enclave, like you mentioned. Like, I guess I never thought about what really happens to that after people, like after you get to like the first and second generation of young people that are now kind of centered in the culture and like there was probably so much survival involved in kind of all being in one place. Whereas, like, now as the generations kind of move forward, they're probably spreading out from each other. Yeah.
yeah. And I always wondered, like I grew up in Orange County, which isn't too far from LA, but like I also left Orange County for like 10, 15 years. And I always wondered, like, should I go back out of feeling guilt? And the many children or many adults, like children of adults who grew up in immigrant families, we tend to move, right? And so who's going to take care of that after we go? Do we come back? Yeah, there's just like a level of guilt that I was interested in when I wrote the book. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that was really palpable with I mean, first of all, these characters, like everybody has so much going on. And so I feel like, it brings me to my question around like making these flawed characters. And I feel like sometimes, just personally, it's been hard for me to like lean into that in certain ways. And it's kind of like, well, it's obvious characters have to be flawed for them to be interesting. But I think sometimes, I have found myself fighting against maybe even like stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
Like not wanting to lean into
Yeah.
stereotypes that flaw my characters because I'm afraid of kind of what it means,
Yep.
for coming from a marginalized group. So how do you kind of manage that? Because I think you did really well of like leaning into what was, quote unquote wrong with the characters, but still giving them a sense of humanity for sure.
That's a really great question, Ashley. And I actually genuinely struggle with that. I struggled with that my first book too, my debut, and I struggled with it my with this book where it's really hard. I personally like really unlikable characters, but because you come from a marginalized background, you veer on stereotypes quite a bit and the trauma that stems from those stereotypes and what that looks like with the inheritance of trauma, things like that. Um, I will say my first book that I deeply love and that sort of gave me this career. Um, my biggest fans were Vietnamese women and my biggest haters were Vietnamese women. So that dichotomy is really hard to navigate because you expose a bit of truth, but it can be seen as capitalizing on stereotypes.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
was really not my intent for any of these books. And but I understand that criticism. For this book, I really leaned into the unlikability because for me, I really wanted to combat the model minority myth where you have to be this like docile, submissive Asian person who goes through life quite, who's quiet, you know, kind of blends into society. And for me, like this family's like fucked up. Like it is. They are. Like I know a
Yeah.
lot, and I actually based it off of a reality TV show in Houston called House of Ho, which is about a Vietnamese family. It's on HBO. There's only like 2 or 3 seasons. It got canceled, but I was addicted to this reality TV show,
Hmm.
and they were fucked up. And but you know, if you also look at white families like Succession, they're fucked up too. And so I wanted to bridge those things together to sort of create and show that fucked up families are uh, kind of go beyond stereotypes. It's just painful to see and to watch and to read. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was really powerful to me. One, it felt really nostalgic for me because I feel like some of my first friends, I remember like some of my first friends in school, it reminded me of growing up in a community that had both Vietnamese and Cambodian kids.
Oh yeah.
And so you have this moment where like I was telling my mom when I was reading the book, because my mom read the book too, by the
Oh,
way. And so I was telling my mom when we were discussing the book, I was like, "Well, do you remember Soken Tia?" I was like, "She was like my first friend, you know." And she used to live in a house like down the street from us, so I would like walk home from school, and she, her house was first and mine was second. So it just really like gave me warm feels about those
oh,
very early
oh,
years, and kind of just understanding how like diverse our lives can be in the beginning, and then they kind of like then everybody kind of starts to separate and
mhm,
hang with kind of their own people. And so yeah, I think everybody's really fucked up to your point, right? And then also it was a reminder, especially when I was reading and just all that like Huey and Duck had gone through. I just was like, man, like all of our struggles are the same. Like we
yeah,
are all fighting against white supremacy at the end of the day,
yeah.
right? And so it was so just like palpable to really kind of see them navigate those waters, because I mean that was really scary stuff that they were really surviving at that time.
And I want to bring up that interesting lawsuit because I did a lot of research on it.
Nice.
It's a very fascinating lawsuit where the Vietnamese fishermen did file the lawsuit against the KKK, but the reason that they won was because there was a black female judge.
Mm.
And in my mind, in the late 70s, early 80s, that is like unprecedented,
Hmm.
right? But it showed true allyship back then. And I worry now with the state of politics, if that lawsuit were to come out now, would they have won?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that like in that time period where you would think they would lose, there was a black female judge presiding over the case who understood with being marginalized Vietnamese fishermen and they saw the terror from the KKK.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, right? Like, and so it really is like a once in a lifetime kind of lawsuit that gets buried. But it kind of showcases like what true allyship can do. And I feel like that is becoming a bit lost in the discourse today.
For sure. I think we were also reminded of that in Sinners and,
Yeah.
looking back and
Yes.
learning about like the population of Asian communities in the Delta
Yes.
and how, they were able to really be an intermediary and serve both like the Black community and the white community. And it was really like special to kind of, for fictional characters to see that community between Stack and I forget the shop owner's name, but Stack and the shop owner and his wife and his kids, because I mean, again, it just brings me back to the community of being like, man, we all grew up in a neighborhood together,
Yes.
and it really didn't matter who was who, and we were just like kids having fun. So yeah, and someone recently talked about like when have we ever not worked together? I think specifically like talking about specific Black and Asian communities that were like together, you know what I mean? So it's nice to see all these stories really kind of culminate around that, and maybe there's space to like continue to not let those relationships kind of falter.
Mhm.
Um
There's a great example. Yeah, I remember when I saw it, I was like, what again? What a piece of forgotten history of the South. You know what I mean? Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah.
No, it was so fascinating. I had to I had to like dive into it because I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this makes it makes so much sense to me that the communities existed in like the East and West Coast, but I'd never thought about it in the South." And I haven't spent a lot of time in the South. I am what they would call a Yankee. So I have spent most of my time in the North, but yeah, I just thought it was like a really great reminder. Um so I feel like I had this question for you about how you avoid the saggy middle. And like what is your approach to leading up to the climax? Like how are you building that section without lagging? Because I felt like you kept me wanting to turn the page, right? Whether it was the siblings and kind of like all their sagas, which like I might have wanted a little more of. Like I really loved like I think it was Oliver. Oliver was the love interest for
Oh
the sister
yeah.
that was in um what San Jose was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted a little more of all that, but I got it. I was like, we can't have a whole story of everybody's love interest in the midst of this saga. But yeah, you kept the pages turning. So what is your approach to avoiding that like soggy middle?
That's a really good question. I did this for my first book too, where my debut I modeled after Game of Thrones, where all the characters don't meet until the very end. And for this for the second book, um, I wanted everything to I don't know if this is like I don't know what this device is called, but I wanted the reader and the audience to get distracted because to me the real story was the mystery of the mom
Mm.
and why I'm sorry for spoiling it, why she had to fake her marriage.
Yeah.
Um, and that to me is like the crux of everything.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting because when I was writing the contemporary parts of the book while doing research, but then when I stumbled upon my research where the KKK had a list of the witnesses at the end that they kept track of, that's when it all like clicked in my
Mm.
head that's the twist. And so I actually have to go back and rewrite it quite a bit and revise it because I don't outline. I don't outline and I don't know where the story goes. I just sort of sit down and I start writing.
That's cool.
It's like very chaotic, but because of that, have like 4 or 5 drafts each time until I figure out the plot. Or I'm sorry, not plot. I always try to figure out the plot twist first. But this one, because of the historical fiction part, when I realized by draft 3, I realized what the new twist was. And so the saggy middle, I kind of crammed with like romance, fixing the shop. I was like, oh, I want them to like be thrown off the scent a little bit. Yeah. And then when they reach the third uh part 3B act, it'll be like, whoa, like it's all really, it all just comes together. Yeah,
How much of your screenwriting experience kind of lends itself to the fiction writing? Because even I hear you talking about acts and like, a lot of screenwriting follows like three act structure. Do you approach your books in the same way, even though you don't outline? Like, are there any ways that that kind of overlaps for you?
it does. And it's funny because playwriting helps me break away from the three act structure because there's no strong rules in theater. It's just sort of like suggested that there's a three act structure, right? But theater is very like the wild west of things. But screenplays and I would say like Western fiction, you very much adhere to the three act structure. But the deeper I grow in my screenwriting career, the more I see the beat. And I think between my first book and this book, even though I don't traditionally outline, I see the beats more. And it keeps it a bit tighter for me. So it's interesting because my first book I adapted into a TV pilot, and from there I wrote a couple more original um, scripts. But I began to learn and grow from understanding pacing a bit more. And so yes, this definitely helped with writing this book because this book was really hard. I actually sold it on proposal. I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
I didn't write the whole book, and I've never written a book on deadline before. It was like extremely chaotic. They wanted the book in 9 months. Um, and the proposal I gave them, the 50 pages I gave, none of that made it to the final.
Mm.
It just kept changing. And I'm having the same issue with my third book now where again I sold it on proposal and nothing I pitched is in it now.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
No, so I think that's really great insight for all of you listening as well to understand too. Like a lot of times fiction books are sold when they're written already, right? And so but sometimes they are sold on proposal, which is what Carolyn is mentioning, and so it might be 50 pages, of kind of like a proposed story that then you have to go write, which I can't really imagine. I think I might I lose my mind if I had to kind of like do it that way. But I think that's amazing. I think that goes to show how strong the concepts are, if you're able to sell on proposal, which is great.
I will say though, for my fourth book, I'm not doing it anymore because it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm not capable of maintaining the pitch because I'm so like chaotic. I also have slight ADHD, so things change a lot for me throughout the research and the writing process. So for my fourth book, my agent had negotiated like down in my contract for my fourth book um I can pitch like one page. And so, which is like a great negotiating negotiation tactic. But for me, I'm gonna write the whole thing first now
Mm.
before I do that again because I'm just not capable of writing on deadline again. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When you talk about the touch of ADHD thing, I'm like, yes, because the way I, and the way it's really hard to like even finish a thing because I have like a new idea for another thing. It's like
Mm.
really difficult. And I think part of the reason why I have started trying to outline for myself because I would normally start writing and then I would get to the middle where I don't know what's happening and then kind of outline myself because I just feel like I will know the beginning of the end and have no idea how we kind of get there. And so I've started outlining myself more to be able to keep myself on a straight path.
I do have a secret tactic to help you guys with the saggy middle. Um, so I follow. There's this thing uh in like uh, I don't know what it's called. I can't remember, but there's like 34 journeys that the Greeks have outlined for main characters. So like main character goes on a journey to go find himself, and then main character goes loses something, has to go find it, right? But there are 34 journey arcs that the Greeks have outlined and how I typically try to form an idea. I randomize two, and that's how I pick the plot for the book.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's a really great tool that I use. I'll send it to you guys when I figure it out what it's called. But it's called like the 34 main character arcs that the Greeks have surmised from long ago. Um, Actually, let me see if I can find it. It's really, really it has helped me immensely when I
Yeah.
try to pitch or when I try to brainstorm things.
Yeah. I think what you're really hinting at here is that there's a lot of intentionality behind books. I
Yeah.
think that sometimes we can think like, even when you're talking about not being an outliner, you know, I think there's just people who are better at outlining in their head. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's still, to your point, right? You talked about like still seeing beats and stuff like that. You might just be better at seeing it in your head, where some of us really have to like actually write it down for it to kind of like stay with us. So but there's so much intentionality that really happens in books. And I think it's easy sometimes as readers to look at it and say, oh, like this all came together so beautifully. One, not given the power to revision. You talked about going back and rewriting parts to kind of make it all make sense. I really find that revision is really where it's at. Like
Yes,
that's
it
really
is.
where you're kind of like making it all make sense. And then also looking at some of these arcs or journeys to say like, okay, cool, I can kind of like remix this. We're all remixing Romeo and Juliet, if you're
Yes,
writing romance, right?
exactly.
Like
Yes.
every story can kind of boil down to that with a lot of different pieces involved. And that's what these journeys sound like too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a couple more questions, and then for you all listening, if you have questions about the book as well, please, you can either when we go to Q&A, you can either unmute or drop your question in the chat, whatever is helpful for you. But I needed you to tell me about the moment between Georgia. So I had Georgia in the language was such a pivotal changing point for Jude. And that was just like such a, I don't know, it pulled at my heartstrings at the moment where Jude really realized like this disconnection that Georgia was having because she was the youngest sibling. So the one who remembered less of their mother, in her leaving, and then two, not getting the language and like being connected to the culture in this way. So how did you kind of stumble across that moment for the siblings? Because when he helped her, like my heart just melted in that moment.
Yeah, I think I kind of modeled it a little bit after my cousins. My cousin, um, he has like two younger sisters, but one is like still, I think she's 18, like 19 now, but he's 32, and that's a big age gap for siblings, right?
Hmm.
Um, and he's like the oldest firstborn son in the family, on my uncle's side, and she's like this like Gen Z kid who loves boba, doesn't speak Vietnamese at all, loves Labubu, you know what I mean? Doesn't know anything, doesn't understand. When we go to temple, she's like, "What's going on?" Like she has no idea, right? But we went to the temple recently because my father passed away, and I saw she did something very sweet where like in temple, obviously it's like in Vietnamese, and she doesn't know what's going on. She has no idea. She like
Mm.
held the book in front of her and started pointing where to follow. And I
Ooh.
think it's a very sweet moment where
Yeah.
it's not like she did not pick up Vietnamese right away, but the fact that he's like showing her and like pointing where to like look at and
Hmm.
follow along. And I've seen him do that multiple times throughout their relationship where he looks annoyed, but he does it without really like, yeah, he just does it.
Yeah.
Even though she looks like he fucking hates her. She's like a gnat, right? Like super nice. But something very sweet and tender about that where you yeah, there's like an understanding that like you don't know. You just don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt for Jude a lot, and I felt for Jane.
Oh yeah, the eldest daughter.
Yeah, especially at the moment where um Which, okay, sorry, my mind just exploded because Duck is an interesting character of how present he is, but not physically throughout the theme, throughout the book. But when they get to the temple and their mother shows up, Evelyn shows up, um, and all the kids have this moment of being absolutely stunned, except for Georgia, right? Because we know that they connected in New Orleans. But Jude being the first to walk towards Evelyn and Jane being the last. Like that whole moment like broke me. I don't know why. I think because I felt for Jude. I felt his lostness. Like even though like all the girls were kind of like figuring out a lot for themselves, they seemed to have more direction, than Jude to me. And so that moment was really touching that he was the first, but it was also interesting that Jane was the last. Um, so can you talk about just Jane as a character, Jane as the eldest daughter, what that kind of means in Vietnamese culture with the fact that, a son means something different, a son means something different than the eldest daughter. Just anything you would want to share about her character. I thought she was very interesting, and I also felt for her.
Yeah, Jane's my favorite, even though like it hurts to see me in her. You know what I mean? Because like eldest daughters are like they rely on you more. You are expected to take care of the family. You are expected to sacrifice more. And him getting married, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of like what women have to go through. Um, Even though it seems like slightly like I mean it's very traditional, but like it's not that hard. I mean it's hard to get married, but like for him it's like it's not that big of a hurdle when there's like all these women have so much trauma and there's resentment with the mom leaving and her having to take on the burden of raising everybody else.
Hmm.
Um, that I remember I kind of teared up when I was writing that scene too because I was like in my mind it's like she would be last to hug her mom because it's hard when you have to be the mom at such an early age. Like who do you yeah, I wanted to build that tension a bit more. And also like the path to forgiveness is a bit harder for Jane. Whereas for Jude it's like, oh my God, come here, mom. He's like, come here, you. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And yeah, I feel very deeply for eldest daughters of any marginalized families. And you just have to take care of it more.
Yeah. It's interesting. I am not an eldest daughter. I have an older brother, but I still feel like there's a weight on women
Yes,
that just
yeah,
isn't required of young men. And
yeah,
it's funny, like my mom has acknowledged it, and I think it's nothing she did purposefully. You know what I'm saying? But I just was like, girl, I felt like I had to be responsible for so much more than
yeah,
he had to. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
invisible labor that whether or not you're intentional about it, it's placed on you by society, by
Hmm.
expectations, and
Yeah.
that just continues to breed resentment. And yeah, I think about that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, sorry, my my literal boss is calling me, but she's gonna have to wait. Sorry. Uh, so, um, I had two more questions, and then I'll kick it over to anyone else who has questions. But one, I wanted to ask about Connie. I thought adding her perspective was interesting. I feel like I personally could have did without Connie. So tell me
I
about
know.
like including Connie and how her relationship, like what was the significance of Connie and kind of like her relationship to Duck?
I know. We actually went back and forth on Connie a lot. They actually wanted me to get rid of Connie, but I have a softness in my heart for like uh, comic relief characters. And
Hmm.
when I was doing the research and I was writing the historical fiction part, um, and like figuring out the plot twist, I was like, this is heavy. It's like very heavy to research. It's very heavy to write about. And Connie to me was just like the comedic relief that I felt like they needed to break up that all that trauma. Um, but I wanted to give Connie uh, her own sort of like mini backstory with her mom. you know, and how they uh come back together at the end. So yeah, everyone has trauma, but I couldn't get rid of Connie. Yeah, I couldn't, even though like my editor, my agent like get rid of her. But yeah, she's very special to me in some way because her and Duck are so ridiculous in their marriage that
hmm
there's just something I like about that. Yeah, she was a mess. Yeah, she's a complete mess.
I gotta say, I did love the scene where it's like Connie, her mother,
Yeah.
Georgia, and then like Evelyn comes and burns that store down. Like that was very powerful as a visual to me. Um, and like help, once we peel back the layers of Evelyn and what happened to, is it Tuan?
It's one. Yeah.
Come
One. Yeah.
on. And what happened to him and the money he had saved, which I thought all those things were great, right? That was the money that really started um the 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 string of stores. I guess let me see, I have two last questions because one is a silly one, but my last question was around the decision for Huey and Evelyn not to come back together. You tell me, because I got all the pain between it, but I also felt sad by that. Like, and I feel like a man is not your reprieve, So I understood it, like of like her own journey, but I guess I'm just, getting to hear it from the author. I would love to know about that decision for it just to be. I don't know. I guess I just felt like they couldn't be together so long that like this was their chance to like actually like put aside all the fears that they had and just be together. So,
Yeah. I actually had my first draft, they actually get back together.
okay.
Yeah. But then like the more like I remember that scene where they hold hands
hmm
at the end and I was like, okay, I want to end on like a happy note. But then like it's hard because like, this woman, Evelyn, has been through like so much, the death of her first husband, going through like the lawsuit, like Huey, and like having to have this like fake marriage with Duck to protect their family. She's never really been on her own. And Huey or Duck, Huey married Evelyn because she was pregnant with Jude. I get it. But Jude was like the first husband, and he
Right.
married her to like, I was like wedlock. You know what I mean? Like,
hmm
um, and I just realized she's never been without the presence of men. And
Mm.
that's like kind of a reason why she abandoned her family to try to find herself a bit more. And I like the idea of her living in New Orleans or like bumbling around the country with her little Vespa and
hmm
like just she's just her. And she's
Yeah.
found peace in that. And I just wanted her to continue to have that peace. Yeah.
Wow. Which is really powerful, right? I think it's really powerful to follow a mother who leaves her children. Because that, in life, that's like the cardinal sin.
Right.
Dads run away all the time, but it's like a mom. So yeah, I really could feel that and understand that. My last silly question is it faux or fa? Tell us
Oh,
the correct pronunciation because I'm always trying to figure it out.
it's pho.
Fa.
Pho. Pho.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you for asking. That's really funny.
I felt that. I love the inclusion of language in the story. I'm always so like touched by that and like I just love culture. So like whatever culture I'm just reading about, like I love that ability. I love for us as writers to like put those moments in and kind of like trust the readers to navigate it, even if they might not understand or be able to like put it into but they can put it into context. I think it just puts a lot of trust in the reader to be like, look, you're gonna understand this. Okay, so we are gonna make this authentic in a lot of ways. And so I really felt that. I felt culture pulsating in the book and I thought it was so thrilling to be able to read this story.
Oh,
So
thank
thank
you.
you for writing it. I want to toss it to the folks that are on. Are there any questions for Carolyn? I've gotten a lot of mine and I will have more if you don't have any. Um Let's see. Jonna has to jump. Thanks, Jonna, for joining us. Any other questions? Yeah, for sure. Unmute, Davida.
Hi. I thank you so much for this conversation, Ashley. Carolyn, I love your book. I thought it was so good. I'm from Louisiana. My mom lives in Houston, so it
Oh,
felt like super in alignment. And I had not heard of this Galveston incident, so I did learn a lot. But my question is, and we kind of talked about it in our chat, was the food as a character and how people would check in on each other by asking if they ate. And I wanted to just hear your thoughts on that. And, like if it was just because it was set in a restaurant, you wanted to bring it back to food, or did that feel culturally relevant? Because that's what made it super relatable to me. Thank you.
oh yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, like I grew up without we never said I love you to each other. We just said like have you eaten? And that's like a form of care, like form of yeah, like are you full? Are you hungry? Like and that is how I've always seen love.
Mm,
And so that's why they have such a hard time saying I love you to their romantic partners, or they have a hard time expressing themselves without like food. And so the scene where they're at the beginning and they're having a little mini reunion and they're eating like crawfish in Houston,
mm,
but them eating their first meal like that in years is like showing affection. And so yeah, I find they find fondness for sure through food. Um, and I think it is very yeah, it's a cultural thing, I think. And like my dad used to like ask me to remind him of my birthday so he could like buy lottery tickets with it. You know what I mean? And like, it's just like a weird, like it's like you dance around love,
hmm
but you show it in like other ways. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like food and music are very universal in those
Yeah.
ways, you know, like
Yeah.
that. Because I just saw Hell's Kitchen last month, and that was Alicia Keys' Broadway play. And
Mhm.
literally the mother kept asking, like, did you eat? Did you eat? So I think it's amazing how food kind of spans across culture in that way. And it does bring me back to one question I had. What do you feel was the disdain between the siblings? Because I thought it was interesting that it was five siblings and that there wasn't a closeness between any two of them. And maybe that's just my thought, right? Like my parents come from big families. I don't. It's just two siblings. Like we don't have a lot going on. But like my parents come from big families and I always felt like there were like small contingents, within the larger families. What feels like the kind of separation that these siblings have? Do you feel like there was a catalyst to that kind of like as we literally start the book, it's kind of like palpable that everybody is sick of each other?
Mhm. That's a really good question. I think I really want to drive in the drama. And for me, I watch a lot of reality TV, like a lot. I watch Bravo. I watch all the Real Housewives. Obviously, I love Love Island. But the one thing I learned from reality TV, you have to build your alliances along the way, and alliances always shift. And that's like what I take away from reality TV, where you kind of have to suss out who your enemies are and who your friends are. Um,
Oh, I love that.
but alliances always shift. And I watch Survivor a lot too. Yes, 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 Big Brother, yes. But like you have to be prepared for the shift. And so I wanted them to sort of go in with no alliances yet, because
Mhm.
anything could change at any given time. Like you can see with like Jews and
Yep.
Georgia having that moment where you sort of build upon that. Yeah, that's really what I think about
That's
it.
really cool. I love that. I'm like now I just also feel like I'm thinking that about that in my own story. It's like, oh, how can alliances shift throughout the
Yeah.
story? That's pretty cool.
Because like
I
in
love it.
reality TV, you can't get mad if they shift. It's part of the game.
Hmm.
You're just not playing it to the best of your ability. And
Hmm.
sometimes I feel like family can be a game too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions from the group for Carolyn? If not, we have like 7 minutes left, and I have one more question. Oh, go ahead, Milan.
Hey, Carolyn. I enjoyed this book so much. You kind of answered my question. I was wondering if you outlined because you're switching perspective and timeline.
Yes.
So that was my question. But I guess since that was answered, that's crazy that you don't outline. I wanted to know like what what was your favorite character to write as far as the siblings were concerned.
Mm. So, I've never written like romance books or like a true like a yearning type of book. So my favorite is Paulina, where she reconnects with her old love. And my fourth book will actually be romance, like a true yearning sort of like, but a bit speculative lit romance. Um, and I think I always like kind of like dip my toe with romance with characters with my first book and my second book, but like I don't really dive too deep into it. But that was uh, one of my favorite scenes to write when we meet each other at the bar in San Francisco, and there's something very like electrifying between them. So yeah, that was like my favorite scene to write.
I love Paulina. Was she an escort?
Yes. Okay. So that's implied. Yes. She's like a high. She's like a high. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I figured. I was
Yes.
like,
Wait, my mouth is open. Let me close my mouth because I feel like I missed it.
Yeah. You're kind of the first person to sort of like pick up on the hint of like she's like decked out in like fine jewelry. She travels the world. She has high clients around the world. Uh, in my first draft, I was more explicit about what she does, but I was kind of very fascinated by like Sugar Baby's OnlyFans and like that quiet luxury that you hide when I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. Oh, she's not using the market.
Yeah, now
Yeah,
I
there's
have to go back
a
and read her like intro scenes now because I'm like, whoa, I totally missed that.
I was like, because it wasn't like you didn't directly say it, and I was like, I feel like
she's a
she's
sugar
an
baby. Yeah,
escort. I didn't want
she's
to
like some. Yeah, she's
overassume.
something. Yeah, she's definitely something.
I understood though, like her presence and that she was beautiful and like, you know what I mean? Like, so I guess I like it makes sense to me, you know what I mean? Like all the pieces were there, but I'm also so naive about that kind of stuff. I was in New York and these women walked in and my friends were like, "Oh, they're working women." And I was like, "Huh?" What? You know, so I'm naive.
Wait, I'm
Um,
sorry. I did have one more question.
go for it,
Um,
Milan.
I know you said you visited Houston, but I do feel like all the cities were kind of well described and kind of the culture in each city. Did you do research?
I have been to all of those cities before.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I have been to everything. Philly, I'm very familiar with. New Orleans, I've been a couple times. San Jose, my husband's actually from San Jose. He's also Vietnamese, so he kind of helps me. So we've gone back and forth for Christmas and stuff for his family. Um, so there wasn't anything that really was like out of the ordinary, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
I really wanted to revisit New Orleans, but yeah, I ran out of money. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I also need to go to New Orleans. Like I've just been basing a lot of my because the story I'm working on right now, the story I'm trying to get an agent with, the main character is a new agent, is from New Orleans. And so I've been like basing a lot of it off of the times that I've been to New Orleans, but I would love to, I'm like, I need to take another trip to just be all writerly about it. I get the sights and smells. I love New Orleans.
If it helps, like as an author, I have an LLC and I expense it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
no,
yeah,
same. I have
almost
multiple businesses, but yes, I have an LLC for my writing as well. So I literally this year was the first year I was like, I need to be writing off these trips.
yes, you should. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't done that, and I need to talk to my tax person about why she didn't tell me that earlier. But I literally had that thought earlier this year because I'm going on a
Yes.
retreat in August. Yeah.
Yes. Write everything off.
No.
Even if you're not published, you write it all off.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Awesome. Any last questions? We're almost at our hour. My last question to you is just how did you know it was the end? How did you come to the end? Because I felt like everything just felt so palpable. Like everybody was starting a new life. I feel like it could have gone on for days. Like what really kind of made you like, how did you know it was the end of the story with this unveiling of Evelyn's store that had her actual born given name?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I knew at the end. Well, first I was like exhausted. I was like, this has to end.
You were like, it's done, it's over.
Yeah, but I think so how I mentioned I always try to figure out the plot twist. For me, how I set my next book, I always know the title, I know the first sentence, and I know the last sentence,
Mhm.
and that's my map. That's literally the only form outline I do. And when I can see the end sentence come, that's when I know. Yeah, I always
Mhm.
know the first and last sentence of the book.
Yeah. Those are always really the palpable parts of a book too. Like I
Yeah,
almost feel like you can forget a lot that happens in the middle, but you will remember how a book kind of started and how it
yeah,
ended.
yeah.
For sure. Well, so beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for also allowing us to record because I know there's so many other folks that read the book that wanted to be able to be here. And so they'll get to listen back to this. And we're excited about everything that is to come. So, however we can continue to support you, we will. And I hope everybody that was listening got a lot out of it as well. I know I sure did. So if it if it's not for you, it's for me. To learn things and just like hear different approaches to literature and how folks are thinking about it. Because it is the Wild Wild West. Writing books is the Wild Wild West.
It
Everybody
is.
does it differently. So it's really nice to hear about folks' process. So thank you very much, Carolyn.
Thank you guys. Thank you for picking my book and thank you for reading. And yeah, if you guys have anything for me, I think you have my email address. So please feel free to just email me anytime of any questions or advice or introductions that you need to people. Let me know. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you
so,
all.
so much. Have a good evening, everybody.
Go watch Love Island now. Bye.
Oh, yeah, it's right on time.
Bye.
Bye.